My name is Joe Skirkis, and I'm a flight instructor. If this is your first time here, welcome. If it's not, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the top 3 reasons that student pilots quit, so that way you can see them when they're coming and hopefully avoid them. So let's get started. Alright, so as I said, we're going to talk about the top 3 reasons that student pilots quit their training, and let's be honest, it's a very high rate. A majority of students actually quit and they never make it to their private pilot certificate. So the first one we're going to talk about is frustration with your progress, hitting that plateau. What a lot of people don't realize is that flight training is actually really hard. There's a lot of components to it that you don't expect going in. You expect to go in and learn how to fly an airplane, and that be the end of it. But it's not that at all. When you get into the bookwork, you're going to learn systems. You're going to have to know how the airplane works. You're going to have to learn how the airplane works. So you're going to go in and you're going to learn the systems of the airplane. You're going to learn how the vacuum system works and the fuel system works. And you're going to have to know and understand these things at more than just a rote level of memory, because you're going to have to pass the check ride to get it. Then we get into weather theory, and I like to joke about it, but it's not too far off. But basically, when you're becoming a pilot, you're taking a minor in meteorology. You're going to get very good at weather, learning how to read it, learning how to plan with it, and all that stuff. There is a ton to learn with it. So usually, on the flying side, you'll hit a plateau. And that's really difficult for some people to get past. You just kind of got to work through it, find different ways to get past it. But the book side, the ground school section, is where a lot of students struggle, because there is a ton of knowledge that you have to put into this to be able to pass and get your certificate. So it's one of those things that kind of really trips some students up, and they just say enough is enough and they walk away. The next thing that causes a ton of student pilots to quit is the time that's required to do this, to become a private pilot. Yeah, you have your flight hours, and if we're talking minimum flight hours, you have to do 40 hours in a Part 61 school to take your check ride to get your private pilot certificate. But that is just flight hours. And again, that's minimum flight hours per the FAA. The average is between 65 to 80 hours nationwide to get your private pilot certificate. But again, that is just time in the plane. As I just spoke about in the last section, there is ground school. You have a whole bunch of stuff that you have to learn. And I promise you that's going to come out to close to double the amount of hours that you are flying. Obviously, the cheap way to do it is to do an online ground school and go through that way and learn, and then kind of supplement with your CFI. But you should figure if you do 80 hours in the airplane, you're probably going to have in the vicinity of 150 to 200 hours of time dedicated to the ground school. So that is a big hurdle for a lot of people, and you'll see people take a lot of time. Another piece of advice I can have for you is don't be one of those people that trains just once a week. It's great in the very beginning when you're first starting out to just be like, oh, I'm going to fly every Saturday, and come out and kind of do that just to kind of get the feel. But once you really start kind of getting it and you get into the maneuvers and stuff, you need to be flying more than once a week. And I can relate that in a way that most people understand is think about when you were learning to ride a bike. Or if you've never learned how to ride a bike, do you think you're going to get it if you just try for an hour a week or 2 hours a week? Or do you think you'd have more success if you're doing an hour or 2 hours a day or every other day, something like that? Flying an airplane is going to be very similar to that type of learning. So you're going to want to be in there more frequently as you kind of get more accustomed to being in the airplane and further down the level of your training. So that way you're not just current, which is legal, that you are proficient. So that way you know what you're doing and you can do it well. Finally, our number one item, the last item on this list for student pilots to quit and not ever achieve that private pilot certificate is, of course, money. This is not a cheap endeavor. It is quite expensive. The average to get your private pilot's certificate right now is anywhere between $15,000 to $20,000. And again, that's because the average is about 65 to 80 hours. You can kind of do the math with where you want. Prices are going to be a little bit different everywhere, but good round numbers to use is $200 an hour for the airplane to rent, and then we'll call it $75 an hour for your flight instructor. And if you watched one of my previous videos on the regrets I had during my training, I think that was the video. I'll find it and I'll tag it up above. But I did in there like hidden costs for flight training. So you're going to have a cost for ground school on top of your flight training. You're going to have headsets, sectionals, the actual material books that you're going to need, a plotter, E6B flight computer. So there's going to be all of these other things that you're going to have to factor in. Let's not forget the check ride. The check rides now, I mean, it's been a while since I did my private pilot check ride, but I'm hearing they're getting close to $1,000 just for that check ride. And guess what? If you fail that check ride, you got to come back. You got to pay again. Now, some DPEs out there are going to cut you a break on a retest depending on how much you have to do. So like if you get through the ground portion and you fail on the flight and you only have to do the flight, they might offer it to you at half price for the retest. But if you fail it in the ground portion and you have to come back and you're basically retaking the entire test from the beginning, they're most likely going to hit you with that full fee all over again. Again, not every DPE does that. There's going to be DPEs out there that are still going to cut you a break on that. But there's all of these added costs and stuff in there that you kind of have to prepare for. And again, the average is about $15,000 up to $20,000 to get this rating. So you really have to kind of budget for this, put money on the side, figure out how you're going to pay for it to get there. And it's definitely a barrier of entry for a lot of people. And it stops a lot of people because, like I said in the previous one, is people will fly once a week. Well, if you're flying once a week, especially once you're kind of really into it and you're practicing landings and stuff like that, again, it's like learning to ride a bike. You're not going to get it very quickly. It's going to take a lot of time. So the more time that it takes you, the more expensive it is because you're constantly going back over things you did last week on your lesson this week before you can kind of take that step forward. So you're always taking like 1 to 2 steps back before you take 1 to 2 steps forward. So if you fly more, you're going to be more proficient with things. You're not going to have to review as much. You're not going to spend as much money on the ratings. So it's kind of one of those things. They all kind of obviously tied together, but those are the 3 major reasons why a ton of student pilots quit and a majority never actually get that first private pilot certificate. So I hope this list kind of helps you prepare for what's ahead so that way you can go and put yourself in the best position to be successful. So that's all I have for this week. I'll see you on the next video.